Hi everyone, I'm going to talk about remote SSH. I've been doing some updates to remote SSH and I wanted to quickly walk through these updates to explain what's changed. So we've got the old method and I want to really deprecate this old method, and what the old method does, is, if anyone's aware of it, is it carried out some source Groovy files or source Java files that was in Grails 2 that would allow them to SCP or SSH, and each one is very repetitive. Basically, they all sort of did the same thing in these blocks. So what I've done is I've replaced all of it to a service now, and the service does literally everything, but it's got some cool features that I want to walk through in a minute. We've also got a taglet which could be used to call these services. So the old method, as I said, was using this remote SSH that we've just done, and it executed that. So I've got a test site, and in here, which I'm going to upload, I've got an action to index. The index calls menu. Menu has old method, which is here, which is what you see here, and it's in the plugin. Anyway, running the command now. So if we keep an eye out on SSHD, at the moment we've got 4 connections, and the reason for that is because I was reusing existing connections, and you can see it here. So let's not jump ahead at the moment. Let's close connections. Got 2 connections. Okay. So old methods, run a command now. This is how you call it. These are all the optional ones that can be passed in. You need that. You probably don't need that as optional. Filter is what you want to filter your output by, and your splitter is by default BR, but you can change that to be something else, but that's when you call it. So at the moment we could just call it, and it has just user command. So if I give it the user command of, I don't know, so that will now just execute on my own. You can see I've still got only 2 SSH connections. So if I run another command, ID. Actually, I've done this one here. So what it does is it does ID and then echo BR and uptime and echo BR and PWD and all pipe into, as you can see here, I've got a pipe and then the results. So your filter would be that pipe that you're looking for. So all your results would have that at the beginning of each line. Your splitter would really be this echo BR, because when it outputs the output, you'll see what I mean. By default, it will do BR. So by me adding a BR for each line, it's now given an extra line. So if you'd had the filter on to be this character, and you'd got your result to produce that, out of all of that, the only thing you would have seen is that. If the results were per line, of course. If they were all in one line, you wouldn't see anything at all, because it's looking for something that begins with this. So scp-dir is to copy a directory remotely. So if we first of all, what we've got a temp directory with some folders and some files. So there you are, that's the contents of it. If I delete this, so we want to copy, and what we want to do is we need to ensure that that folder on the remote machine exists that we want to create. So from temp AA and the remote machine temp KK. So at this moment, the host, I've not defined it in this call, and it's going to localhost. So that's now copied. And that's our contents there. SCP file. So rm temp some of these tests will look the same because the remote and the local machine is the same. So I want to copy that file to a remote machine and copy it to temp. You can see it's just created that file now. If I remove it again, file's no longer there. Get file, so we want to, again, from the remote machine, so this would be remote host, and we want to copy it to temp. There's our file again. What this leads to now is the reuse an existing connection. And if we minimize this, you can see here it says new session being created, sending dummy connection, and that's us now connected. And if I now send W, so if we look first of all at, we've now got 4 connections, and this is this now. So if I do W, it gives me the results of W. I've still got 4. If I do who am I, that executes that. I've still got 4 connections. So it's uptime. So it's giving that uptime. So I'm actually directly interacting with it using this plugin now. And how this works is very different to how I've done all my other stuff with JSSH. So really, if you want to do live interaction with SSH, you want to look up JSSH plugin, which I've worked on, and there's a lot of WebSocket stuff that goes through that. But for now, I've done some really cool stuff with this, and I want to explain how you use this. I'm going to upload this example site and mention it in the plugin so you can gain access to it. But so the default actions that you saw were run command, index, scpdir, file, and get. And you've got, so for example, for each one of them, that's the page, and then all I've just done is pass the command. Run command, RSH run command goes to the tag lib of the plugin. And in here we've got run command, which calls RSH run command. Then here it validates the params, which works out what's required for that call, returns it back to the call, and literally then just does a connection, opens a session, gets the output from executing a query, and closes the connection. And scpdir does typically the same thing, gets a connection session, does a directory copy, and closes. File, same thing. Get, same thing. And further down are the actual calls to Ganymede libraries, jar libraries. And this is what executes the command. So this is the plugin. Now the code that does the nice bit that you saw, the more advanced feature, the reuse an existing connection. What I've done is in the test controller of so SSH config is being called for the old method. So if you're not using the old method any longer, you don't need that anymore. For the fancy stuff that you saw on that more advanced stuff, I've had to call in the RSSH service from the remote SSH plugin. In here, what I've done is I've reused the validate params of that plugin, and I've returned the stuff that I need, and it was literally within the connection block of the original, you know, the thing that you use to run a command. Then I've done some fancy stuff, and I've said if there's no session.connect.con, connect through, and set our connections as true. Then we're saying if we've got a user command and we've got a session, then to reuse the existing session. Otherwise, if we don't have a command, so this is our first initial connection as we hit the page for the very first time. So now that we've hit it, by the way, what we need to do is once we're finished with this, we need to close the connection. Otherwise, it will keep that open. And now our connections are back to 2. So that page has been reset. So I'll talk through that in a minute as well, but I'll show you. So if we have a session, to reuse that session, and that will be what I've done is I've stored the SSH session into a value of session.sh, right? So if we've got that, reconnect through, and has connection is true. and you'll see this in a minute. If we don't have a session, create the session, open the session, and set this to false, and just do an echo minus n, which just literally the splitter is this, so it won't get returned, so nothing will get returned. Sorry, the filter is this, so nothing will get returned to the screen as our part of our primary connection to the plugin. And after that, it will just go through this loop here and keep on going through and keep on going through this. And close con, as you saw, it just closes, calls this and closes the connection. So what this has connection is, it's something I added just not long ago to get all this to work. So you can now take, to take a benefit of all this and reuse it in your own code. What we've got is, probably should here. So what we've got is has connection, and if that's not available or not true, it does this PTY VT200. Otherwise, it says it's already connected. So just reopen the session. And in essence, what it's saving you from doing every time is opening a new session and opening a new connection to the back end. So we're already connected. All we're going to do is reuse that connection and just send through a command. It takes all of this, but all it's doing is it's sending the user command. It does the sudo stuff again from scratch and whatever if it needs to, but it saves from having to, do all this expensive stuff here and here again. But as I said, when you finish the fit, you need to have a way of recalling this close connection or creating your own close connection and calling this, because otherwise you'll leave that connection open. I think that wraps it up. I'm going to upload the test plugin, the test application, the plugin. I'm not sure if I'm going to get time tonight to update Grails 3 as well with all this. But yeah, take it. Bye.